When my phone rang at 12:04 a.m., I thought someone had died. Instead, my best friend said, "Man, I messed up." Then I heard my FIANCÉE whisper his name in the background. "Hey there. We're working hard to hit our first 1,000 subscribers. If you love true, emotional stories, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know." Now let's get into the story. Hey, I'm Ryan. I'm 29, work in IT security, and live just outside of Denver. I've always been a pretty quiet guy, not into drama, just do my job, hang with my small circle, and try to be a decent human being. Until recently, I thought I had two people in my life who were permanent, my best friend Tyler and my fiancée Lena. I met Lena 5 years ago at a 4th of July barbecue. She was sparking bottle rockets and talking trash to dudes twice her size during lawn games. She had this fearless energy I couldn't look away from. I asked for her number by the end of the night, and she kissed my cheek and said, "Earn it first." We've been inseparable since. Or so I thought. Tyler, he's been my best friend since sophomore year of high school. He was the kind of guy who made people laugh even when they didn't want to. My mom used to call him my extra brother. He helped me move 3 times, and I helped him through 2 breakups and 1 regrettable tattoo. He was the best man at our engagement dinner. I would have bet my savings on him. But nothing prepares you for betrayal from the people you trusted most. That night, when the call came, I was lying on the couch, halfway through an old action movie I've seen a dozen times. Lena had told me earlier that she was staying with a friend because they were planning some kind of bridal sleepover thing to go over final details for the wedding. I didn't question it. I kissed her goodbye around 8 p.m. She left in sweats and no makeup, with that tired smile she gives when she's stressed but trying to hide it. So when my phone lit up past midnight and I saw Tyler's name, I assumed something serious had happened. He didn't say hello. No greeting. Just breathing and this nervous, cracked voice saying, "Man, I messed up. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." I froze. "What are you talking about?" I asked, sitting up. And then, before he could answer, there was a whisper. Faint, muffled, but unmistakable. "Ty, come back to bed." My blood ran cold. It was Lena's voice. There was a silence on the line. A long one. I didn't hang up. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, phone to my ear, feeling everything drain out of me. He never hung up either. Just breathing, and then a click. No follow-up text. No apology. No explanation. Nothing. That silence was the moment my entire life split in two. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even cry. I was too stunned to feel much of anything. I sat on that couch until the sun came up. My hands were still clutching the phone like I was waiting for someone to call back and tell me it was all just a sick misunderstanding. But I knew better. I kept hearing that whisper on a loop in my head. "Ty, come back to bed." She sounded so casual. Like this wasn't the first time. Like this wasn't new. And then I started doing what any betrayed person does when they can't get answers. I replayed everything. The late nights Lena said she needed space to plan the wedding. The way she flinched when I touched her shoulder lately. Tyler suddenly being too busy to meet up when we used to hang out twice a week. All those weird excuses that felt off. But I brushed it all off because I trusted them. I trusted them. I didn't call her the next morning. I didn't call him either. Instead, I took the day off work and I started gathering evidence. If they wanted to play dirty, I was going to let them. And I was going to watch every second of it unfold. Silently. I didn't say a word the next day. Not to Lena. Not to Tyler. Not even to my coworkers, who asked if I was sick because apparently I looked like I'd aged 5 years overnight. The only thing I said out loud all day was to the barista at the cafe across from my office. Large black coffee, no room. I sat in the corner, stared out the window, and planned. When someone cheats on you, most people want to scream. They want to flip tables, or break plates, or burn it all to the ground. And I get it. But for me, I shut down. My brain went into this quiet, ice-cold mode I didn't know I was capable of. I didn't want to lash out. I wanted to know everything. Every detail. Every time. I wanted to bury the doubt and arm myself with facts. So I started digging. First thing I did was pull up our shared desktop computer at home. Lena mostly used it for wedding planning. I ran a script I'd written years ago that could recover deleted files and browser history. Took about 15 minutes before I found something that made me feel like I was watching my own heart getting stepped on. There were cached emails from her to a T_Miller21 account. I opened one. It was short. "Can't stop thinking about last night. Still wearing your hoodie. Call me when you leave the gym." That was dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. I scrolled through more. Some were emails. Some were GChat messages. Some even had attached pictures I'll never be able to unsee. It wasn't just physical. It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional, coordinated, intimate. And the most disgusting part? They had clearly talked about me. Jokes about how I still think we're doing a rustic wedding. or how I probably wouldn't notice if they made out in front of me. One message from Tyler said, "He's too soft. That's the problem. He just forgives. He always forgives." Forgiveness wasn't even on the table anymore. That night, I told Lena I had a short business trip coming up, just a few days down to Colorado Springs. I said I'd be crashing at my buddy's place, and she barely looked up from her phone. Just mumbled, "Okay, don't forget the dry cleaning before you go." The next day, I went shopping for gear, a couple of cheap indoor security cameras. Motion activated, synced to a hidden drive on my cloud account. One went behind a vent in the living room. The other I placed inside a smoke detector in the bedroom. I tested both before I left for my trip. Except I didn't go anywhere. I parked my car in a friend's garage and took a cab to a hotel about a mile from my house. Set up my laptop, logged into the camera feed, and waited. The first night, nothing. Second night, jackpot. At 9:46 p.m., Tyler walked into my house like he lived there. Lena greeted him in one of my t-shirts. They opened a bottle of wine. My wine, the one I'd been saving for after the wedding. They curled up on the couch, watched something on Netflix, then started making out like high schoolers with no shame. They went upstairs at 10:22 p.m. lights off. But the motion sensor still caught the shadows. I shut the feed. I didn't need to see the rest. The only thing worse than betrayal is watching people be comfortable in their betrayal. The next morning, while they were still asleep, I forwarded the recordings to a new encrypted folder and locked it with a password only I knew. I labeled it Wedding Gifts. Then I went for a walk. Not because I needed air, but because I realized something. I wasn't angry in the way people expected me to be. I didn't want revenge in the form of shouting matches or revenge affairs. No, what I wanted was for them to feel small, to feel watched. I wanted them to realize that their fantasy world wasn't as secret as they thought. That night, I sat in the hotel room and stared at my phone again. There were 0 new messages from either of them. No guilt. No checking in. Nothing. Which meant they still believed I was clueless. Perfect. 2 days after their little sleepover, Lena texted me asking how my work trip was going. I replied, "Long boring. Can't wait to be back in our bed." She sent back a heart emoji and said, "Miss you too." I stared at the message for a while. Not because it hurt. It didn't anymore. But because of how easily she could lie. She had just slept with my best friend in that bed. And now she was pretending like she missed me in it. The worst part? Tyler hadn't even bothered to text at all. Not even a fake check-in. For someone who once said I was his ride or die, he sure dropped the friendship fast. But that silence was useful. It gave me time to act. On Thursday morning, I messaged a friend of mine, Cassie, who worked in HR for a financial firm downtown. She wasn't just a casual acquaintance. We'd dated for a bit in college, and we'd stayed friendly. I didn't tell her everything, just enough. That I had a video of a guy in a high-visibility client-facing role having an affair in a very unethical situation, one that could potentially damage their firm's image. She replied, "Send me what you have. If it's as serious as you're saying, I'll pass it up the ladder. You're not crazy. This kind of stuff can get people fired." I sent her 2 clips. One of Lena greeting him at the door, kissing him, wine glasses already out, and one from the bedroom cam, where they thought the lights would keep them hidden. You couldn't see much, but it was clear enough. It wasn't just emotional cheating. They'd crossed every line. Meanwhile, I kept playing the part. I texted Lena that I might stay a couple extra nights because we were doing some server repairs. She didn't even question it. I stopped by the house once while they were both out. Lena had a hair appointment on her shared calendar, and Tyler was probably at work. I needed something from the attic. A box I hadn't touched in years. Inside it was a copy of the lease agreement for our house, some old receipts, and most importantly, the backup key to my fireproof lockbox. I took that key, slipped it into my wallet, and left no trace I'd been there. By that weekend, I had a folder ready. Not digital, physical, hard copies of every message they'd sent. Screenshots, transcripts, camera stills, even timestamps. And I had one more errand to run. Lena's dad, Bruce, had always liked me. Not in the fake, welcome to the family way, either. We actually got along. Talked about football. Shared a drink at every get-together. He was proud that I was stable and joked once that I was the best financial decision she ever made. So I mailed him the folder. Priority, overnight delivery. No return address. I didn't include a note. I didn't have to. And then I waited. On Sunday morning, Lena called. Her voice was sharp, like she was trying not to scream. "Did you send my dad something?" I acted confused. "What are you talking about?" She was breathing hard on the other end. "Don't play dumb, Ryan. He canceled the catering. He called off the deposit for the honeymoon suite. He said he knows everything. What did you do?" I kept my tone calm. "I think maybe you should ask your friend Tyler." Silence. Then she hung up. Tyler called 10 minutes later. For the first time since that night. "Ryan, bro, can we talk?" I didn't say yes or no. I just said, You should probably get a lawyer. And maybe update your resume. I hung up. Monday morning, I got a text from Cassie. Thought you'd want to know. He's under internal review. Might get terminated for conduct. I stared at that message for a while. Not out of satisfaction, but clarity. They'd spent months plotting this little fantasy, and it all unraveled in 72 hours. But I still wasn't finished. The wedding wasn't canceled yet, and I had a stage. The thing about betrayal is, it rewrites everything. Every smile starts to look fake. Every memory feels staged. Even the way someone hugged you now plays back in your head like a lie wrapped in comfort. I used to daydream about our wedding day. Now, I was planning how to burn it all down without even raising my voice. And I wasn't going to cancel it. No, letting them walk away quietly would be mercy. They deserved something they'd never forget. I kept the wedding date locked in. The venue was still booked, and since Lena's dad had pulled his support, she hadn't reached back out to me. I think she was too afraid, too unsure what I'd seen or what I knew. That worked in my favor. The venue was already half paid. I covered the rest. Quietly. Just enough to make sure I still had access to the guest list and event schedule. I emailed the coordinator and said there were changes coming, that Lena wouldn't be attending anymore, and we needed to adjust the program. She asked, "Is everything okay?" I replied, "You'll see." Next, I went through the guest list. Deleted her family, her friends, kept mine. But I also added a few people she wouldn't expect, like Cassie, the HR friend who had helped me nail Tyler, and two of my old college roommates who had always been suspicious of Lena's best friend relationship with him. I even invited my cousin Mike, the one Lena always hated because he had bad manners. Perfect. A few nights before the big day, Tyler texted me again. "I know I screwed up, but this doesn't have to go nuclear. Can we just talk like men?" I didn't respond. What was left to talk about? He'd made his choice. Now it was my turn. The night before the wedding, I checked into a hotel near the venue. Packed only what I needed, a tailored tux, the flash drive with the footage, and a speech. Not a long one. Just enough. Morning came. I shaved, dressed, tied my cufflinks with hands that didn't shake. That surprised me. When I arrived at the venue, the staff greeted me with confused smiles. "Is your bride arriving later?" one of them asked. "She had a change of plans," I said calmly. "But the event's still on." They blinked, confused, but nodded. Guests started to arrive. Just about 60 of them. Friends. A few coworkers. Some extended family. All of them looking around, wondering where Lena was. I kept smiling, greeting, shaking hands. I acted like the groom who was just giving her a few more minutes. Then, once everyone was seated, I walked up to the mic. "Hi, everyone," I said, clearing my throat. "Thank you for being here. I know many of you were expecting a wedding. And in a way, I suppose we're still having one, just not the kind you thought." There were chuckles, confused faces, some whispering. I continued. "See, weddings are supposed to be about truth. About two people committing to each other, being honest, faithful, transparent. That's what I thought I had." I paused, let the silence settle. But turns out, I was the only one showing up honest. I pulled out the flash drive, plugged it into the projector screen the venue used for slideshows and background videos. And then I pressed play. The footage started rolling. The living room, Tyler walking in, the kisses, the laughter, the shadows on the bed, gasps. A woman near the back stood up and muttered, "Oh my God." Someone else whispered, Is that Tyler?" A few seconds into the second clip, I paused it. "I thought you all deserved to know why there won't be a wedding today. Why Lena won't be walking down that aisle. And why my best man won't be giving a speech today either." Still silence. No one moved. Just a sea of stunned faces. I took one last look around the room. Love is supposed to bring out the best in people. And betrayal, well, it shows you who someone really is. I'm grateful I found out in time. Enjoy the open bar. I'm going to Italy. And with that, I walked out. Not a word from anyone. Just the sound of whispers chasing my back. I didn't check my phone for the next 6 hours. I didn't need to. By the time I got back to my hotel, word had already spread like wildfire. Cassie texted me a simple, holy sh**t. My cousin Mike sent me a voice message laughing so hard I couldn't even understand him. And my mom, sweet, old-school Catholic woman who never says a bad word about anyone, left a voicemail saying, "I always knew she wasn't raised right." Apparently, someone had filmed the entire event and thrown it on Facebook. The footage of me calmly exposing the affair, shared, clipped, reposted. Someone even added dramatic music under it. I went viral for canceling my own wedding and exposing my cheating fiancé and best friend on a projector screen. I wasn't trying to be famous, but you'd be amazed how fast people love a clean revenge arc. Lena didn't call me that night, but her sister did. "Ryan," she said, "what the hell did you do?" "What I had to," I said coolly. "You humiliated her in front of everyone." I let out a short breath. She did that to herself. I just provided the audio visuals. She hung up. Tyler, on the other hand, tried to FaceTime me. Twice. I declined both calls. Then he started texting. Bro, we need to talk. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Can we fix this? You don't have to nuke my entire life. You got your point across. Please. I'm losing everything. That last message sat on my screen for a while. I'm losing everything. All I could think about was how I had almost lost everything too. My dignity, my sanity, my ability to trust. So I wrote him back one line. You didn't lose it. You gave it away. Blocked his number. The next morning, I checked my email. There was a refund confirmation from the honeymoon resort in Amalfi. I had canceled everything. Flights, hotel, reservations. I should have been heartbroken while doing it, but honestly, I felt free. Then I had a different idea. I rebooked the trip. Just for one. Changed the dates. Up the room. If I was going to restart my life, I wasn't going to do it sulking in Denver. I was going to do it on a balcony, with Italian espresso, and nobody nagging me about wedding favors or seating charts. Meanwhile, word kept spreading. One of Tyler's co-workers apparently caught wind of the HR investigation and leaked it to their team group chat. I didn't know this part at the time, but Cassie told me later. They had just been lining Tyler up for a major promotion. His face had been on internal brochures, even listed as one of the rising stars in ethical investment. That aged poorly. By the end of the week, Tyler had been put on unpaid leave pending a full investigation. His firm had a strict moral conduct clause. Sleeping with a client's fiancée? Bad optics. Sleeping with his best friend's fiancée, when he also used to be involved in Ryan's prior accounts. Fatal optics. He sent me one last message through email. All I wanted was something real. She was never supposed to be yours. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to Cassie instead. She said, thanks. That'll help close the case. As for Lena, she tried to come by the house a few days later. I knew because the ring cam recorded her standing outside for 12 minutes, pacing, holding some kind of letter in her hand. She knocked, rang the bell. Eventually, she slid the envelope under the door. I waited until she left, then opened it. It was a handwritten apology, a long one. She said she was lost, that Tyler manipulated her, that she didn't know how to stop once it started, that she hoped someday I'll understand. I folded it up, tossed it in the trash. Some things don't need closure, just distance. I left for Italy 2 weeks after what should have been my wedding. The morning of my flight, I stood in the doorway of the house I used to think we'd raise kids in. The living room still had the throw pillows she picked. The kitchen had her favorite tea in the drawer, but something about it felt hollow now. Like a movie set someone abandoned halfway through shooting. I didn't take much with me. Just a carry-on, my passport, and a small leather-bound notebook I'd never really used until now. On the plane, I flipped to a clean page and wrote. Rule number 1. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. It was the first sentence in what would become a journal I filled over the next 2 weeks with nothing but clarity. Italy was quiet. Healing. I sat on cliffs overlooking the Amalfi coast. I hiked alone through narrow paths where old women sold fresh lemons and handmade soap. I ate pasta cooked by someone's grandmother who didn't speak a word of English, and I didn't need her to. For once, nobody knew me. Nobody looked at me like the guy whose wedding imploded. I wasn't a headline. I was just Ryan. A guy with a decent appetite and a quiet mind trying to come back to life. One morning, I walked down to a little harbor near Ravello. There was a man about 70, pulling in nets. He didn't say much, just nodded at me and kept working. I asked if he needed help, and he handed me one end of the rope. We stood there hauling in weight together. No words, just effort. When we finished, he handed me a bottle of water and said in broken English, "Some fish die because they chase what sparkles, not because they're hungry." That hit me harder than any advice I'd gotten in months. Because for the first time since this all started, I realized I wasn't broken. I was just pulled under by people who looked shiny but had nothing solid underneath. They weren't deeper than a puddle, and I'd mistaken that for a sea. Back in Denver, Lena moved out. She sent me a short email saying she would forward her new address for mail and left a few of her things in boxes by the front door. I never responded. I donated her clothes to a shelter and sold her furniture online. Used the money to repaint the house. Fresh coat of paint. No more shared colors. Tyler got fired from his firm about 3 weeks after the video leaked internally. Apparently, HR found more evidence of similar behavior, flirting with clients, a few non-disclosures, even a quiet complaint from a junior analyst. He tried texting me from a different number. I lost everything. Lena's not even talking to me. That message made me laugh, briefly, because it was never going to last. What they built was made of betrayal. You can't build a future on a stolen foundation. I blocked that number, too. I went back to work eventually. A few people at the office had heard about what happened, but no one said anything to my face. My boss just looked at me and said, You good? I nodded, and that was that. The funny thing is, I don't hate them. I thought I would. I really did. But hate takes energy. So does bitterness. And I was just tired. Not of life, not of people, but of carrying things I didn't need anymore. I deleted our old photos. Archived the wedding plans. Shut down the Pinterest board she made for our honeymoon. That part of my life was done. Buried. And all that was left now was room. Room to breathe. Room to rebuild. Room for someone who doesn't whisper someone else's name in the dark. My last entry in that leather-bound notebook was written on the flight home. Not every loss is a tragedy. Sometimes it's just your life being edited. The dead weight goes first. And I'm okay with that. Because if there's one thing I know now, it's this. The best revenge isn't a speech. It's peace. And I've never slept better. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day. And trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.